Well, hello! Welcome to Drawing with Fire. I'm Valarie, your neighborhood pyrography artist, joined with hubby
Hubcap
and two fur babies.
Woof woof.
Woof woof. And today we're going to keep working on the background. I'm going to use the torch with the hot air, and we'll discuss that. We're also going to discuss ugly stage and why we're in them. So if you're new, don't forget to hit the join button. Or subscribe button. Sorry. If you want free patterns and become a member, hit the join button. And don't forget to hit like. And we're going to get started. Hey, Andrea. Alright, so I started yesterday doing the torch in the background. And right now, it does not look smooth. It looks very splotchy. What I did first was use my pen, my Optima, to just put in a light background. And that was just to basically iron out the wood. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And then I started using the torch. And it always starts out ugly using the torch because it gets really splotchy. But we are going to deal with that. So don't worry. It will get dealt with. We'll move over here. We'll kind of angle it. And you'll also know there's a different color. There's a color difference in the wood. The torch tends to do a grayer version of the burn. But one good thing is when we varnish this, all the colors come together. Plus we're going to be going over this with our wood burner. So it all melts together. Don't stress about it. It also shows you, because as I was doing this, I was like, wow, this really stands out how different areas of the grain burn differently. Again, totally normal. But what this does do is give you an idea of how that area of the grain is going to burn so that you can make adjustments before we get there, before you get there. So I'm going to flip my board just because it's easier. I'm going to drop us down here. And see, we can see the changing color just by moving our camera because it's not this area. What you're seeing on camera is closer to what it's going to be or what it is right now versus when you guys see it in other areas because the light's not hitting the same area. In fact, I intentionally took a photo that I'll pop up real quick. Let me find it. There it is. And this photo shows the burning yesterday after I was done. I took it from an angle, and what it does is it cuts out the light and how it hits, and we can see how much darker it is compared to what you saw both on camera a second ago plus in the thumbnail. This is not adjusted other than to crop. There is no adjustment in the color or the brightness. None of that, but we can see the difference, and that's because the light is hitting the wood and bouncing into the eyes, or in this case the camera, differently than straight on. So I just wanted to show you that. So if you're kind of stuck and you keep darkening, but you're not ready to wipe with denatured alcohol, take a photo of your burning from an angle where the light is hitting different, and you'll be able to see better what's going on. Alright, so I'm going to pop that off. And now I'm going to pull up my torch. This is the one I'm going to be using. This is the one I always use. And you actually see the hot air tip on it, as you see right here. This is called a catalyst. I don't want the flame to hit the board. And the reason I don't want the flame to hit the board is I start getting the really burnt out areas, no matter how much I move around. It bugs the heck out of me.
Is that what makes it look gray?
It could. But I think it's also a different kind of heat that's doing it as well. So I have this, let's see here. It's not showing on my screen. That's fine. I have this one linked down in the description. I've had this since 2022. I've not had to replace this tip. Dremel is what I was using before, and it's really expensive to replace this tip. I bought a replacement for this, and you get a whole set. This is, where is it at? There we go. And I think I paid $12 or $14. I actually have 2 replacements just so I don't have to worry about it and stress out. That is the catalyst right there. That is what I use for the hot air. And it just makes things so much easier. And I get a result that I like a lot better. So let's get going. I'm gonna, oh, and the fuel I'm using, this is my second bottle. I just opened this. The first bottle, I bought that in 2022, so it lasted 4 years. And I burned out, I use this a lot. This is what I use. I've got it linked down in the description. It is not cheap, but it does last. Alright. Sure. So I'm on my lowest setting. And sometimes this can take a minute because the wood is cooler. So just hold on. Give it a minute. Again, I'm on the lowest flame. There we go.
I think what's interesting is that because you're not hitting it with flame, but we're seeing the light from the flame.
Yep.
That's being projected onto the board, and it acts as an endpoint for you.
Yeah, it shows me exactly where I'm at. And just like with our wood burning pen, the speed makes all the difference. If I go too slow, I'll get the splotches. If I go too fast, I'll get a light burn.
Just as an added note, I have noticed that when you're using a torch, it produces a lot more of that burn smell than regular.
It does.
Pens. So I guess if people are sensitive, it's something they should be aware of. Although I find it quite pleasant. It smells like a wood fireplace.
Oops, see, they stay in that place too long, but I'm not stressed about it because I'm going to go darker. So I'm not even worried about it.
It's the background anyway.
Yeah. If you notice, I'm not getting that charcoal flame look. I've also got a fan going on at my feet, and this is still burning. Just try to keep it nice and even. Watch where you overlap, because that's another reason it'll burn darker than maybe you were expecting. And luckily with this, like you said, the flame itself almost acts like a laser pointer, and I know where I'm at. I'm not having to guess. So I'm just doing this enough to darken it a little bit. In the end, I'm going back over it with my wood burner. This is to fill it in quicker. Because unfortunately, I do have a habit that when I'm burning a dark background, because it's so repetitive and I get into such a meditative state, I can actually start dozing off.
That's not safe.
So if I get this filled in, and I use it in other areas, I did use it on the horse's body.
I think something that, because it would be easy to get a charcoal with this, but there's really some problems with that, especially when it comes to finishing the piece, because it creates a texture on the board and it's not exactly stable.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about, varnishing it or whatever, in the end, the charcoal is not going to be as stable. as
Well, luckily it's just on the top in general.
yeah.
Though I've had to tap out some flames when I first started using a torch.
I think the other part of that is that, like, when you're doing pyrography, it seems to me that contrast is everything. And so a lot of stuff is not going to be as dark as you want it because you're limited by the,
What the wood will do.
wood will do. So you might be limited to a dark brown. And that has to be okay. But if you decide to push it and go as dark as you can, and blacken the board essentially, you're also limiting yourself in other places as well. Like, yeah, you have a really dark background, but then other dark places, you're gonna have to match that in the composition, and that could be really, really difficult to do. So I think seeking the appropriate amount of contrast is the better route than trying to just go dark, dark, dark.
Well, this will go much darker.
Oh, I know, but I know that's not.
And you can tell where I've already burned darker, because when I go over it with a torch, yeah, it darkens, but there's a different texture. I'm going to even all of that out, and you won't even notice it.
Okay.
By the time I'm done. This is just to get it a little more even, to do so quicker, because it definitely can get quite tedious. And this is, in the scheme of things, a small dark background.
Yeah. But I think that can be really useful to, have a way to get the background more even. Because this, like what you're doing right now, in the past 5-6 minutes, represents, like, I don't know, maybe an hour. Yeah, yes. An hour of pen work. So I mean, that's a valuable tool, right? Because we do the same thing in painting. You use big brushes to cover a large area, or an airbrush.
Yeah.
And it saves time, because if you try to do everything with like a little sable brush, you're gonna be at it forever. So
now this area burned darker because it was already hot, and
Wanda's here.
Hey, Wanda, kept going over it. So I'll try not to hit the areas that are already too dark, or not too dark. They are not too dark.
I noticed that because you're using a live edge board, I noticed that there's a layer of the bark that is near the outside of the bark that's super light and it's not really taking heat.
I'm not going over it.
Ah. So it looks that way by intention?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not touching this. I'm not going all the way to the edge.
Oh, okay. Well, it's cool. It looks like a border.
Yep.
I wondered if there was like a physical reason, like it just wasn't burning. I didn't realize that you weren't.
I'm just not burning it. I did on the bear, but I'm not burning it on this one.
I see.
So right now, it's really ugly.
I don't know about that.
Hold on. Because that's where it gets overwhelming, is when it doesn't feel like it's improving. But that also, you need to take into account that we haven't done any real details. I haven't smoothed anything out. And I know people want to get things done quicker, and which is why they use the flame. I mean, I have this torch linked down in the description. It's currently, through Amazon, $49. But it comes with this tip. Comes with a bunch of tips. And it's been a very comfortable and well-working torch. See, if I slow down too much, it's just going to burn darker. And there's I've got a halo around the horses because I'm not actively blocking where I'm burning. So I'm just trying to get in between. Because again, I'm not going to worry about right now having it perfect. And that can be hard. It really can be. Because then you want to give up because you're not seeing it move. You don't see it growing or improving.
I think. Go ahead.
And then you walk away from it and you don't learn. And then you stop burning.
I think it's super important to
Embrace the ugly stage.
well pay attention to what you're doing when you're creating because you know all art has an ugly stage, and if you're persistent you will work your way through that stage. It's kind of like making a puzzle, you know. You can't just put a puzzle all together at once, you know. You have to do it in stages. But the more often that you complete a work of art, whatever the medium, but in this case pyrography, the more that you will like understand that the ugly stage is a stage, and that
it's just temporary.
You just need to be persistent and it'll work out just like it always has. But I think that the more art that you do, the more this will be a comforting reality, and the ugly stage will just be a stage that you're in, and you'll have the knowledge that you're going to get through it.
But it is hard to be in this stage for a long period of time. And with wood burning, if you're taking your time and you're really working it, that can be, you know,
oh, I agree,
very long time before you start seeing the benefits. But it also, I would say, good aspect of the ugly stage, and I have to remind myself of this, is you're more likely to experiment, which makes you grow faster as an artist. When you experiment, you learn things that maybe you didn't realize you liked it until you either intentionally or inadvertently did it during the ugly stage. And then you add another aspect to your repertoire.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because this is when you're more likely to experiment.
I think, yeah, I think that's true, because you might happen upon like a specific way that you're doing the background that is like super pleasing to you, you know, or whatever the case might be. But I think that and each piece of art is different too. But I think again that comes down to continuing to work on pieces and complete them, and like it all expands your toolbox, I think.
Embrace the ugly.
Wanda wants to know, that's kind of what I said a minute ago, but when you burn live edge, do you burn the inside bark? And is that a choice per piece?
That's a choice per piece.
Okay.
Because I did with the bear to extend it. But for like the horses, I don't feel the need to extend it. So I've chosen not to do it. Let's get up here.
It might be an aesthetic choice too, because you know that you've got the very dark outside bark, and then you've got a light band of the inside bark, and that might act as a framing device.
Yep.
So
it all depends on the piece. It really does. The aesthetic that you want. There's no right or wrong to that.
Yeah. Burrow's here.
Hey, Burrow. I would say when you're laying out your piece, if my ears were, like I did the horse head bigger and the ears were closer, then I would go all the way to the top. Because I have room, I didn't feel the need to fill it in. So a composition issue help me make that choice. But the mouth is closer to the other edge. But if I did the other edge, it would look a little off. So really on that, it's all a artistic choice. Be careful of your photo. That is paper. The longer I stick with it and just keep going over it, gradually, it gives me some wiggle room. Ugh, it's hot in this room.
It is. Andrea wants to know if it's easier to use a torch for background as opposed to a pen.
I like using both. I would say it depends on the background and how comfortable you are with your tools.
I would add to that. I think that it comes down to what kind of texture that you're trying to develop.
Yeah.
Also, because the pens, each pen has a particular texture that it adds to the composition, and the pen is unique in that it is more like an airbrush. It adds very little texture. You can get a very smooth gradient. So any variation that you're adding is, it's going to be less defined than it's going to be a lot softer. So if you're looking for softer, less detail, then the torch is the tool. And if you want more detail and texture and more definition, then pens.
Yeah, the pens give you more control. The torch fills in faster. I'm going to come back down here. We'll flip it here in a minute. And I'll grab a pen. I think to start... what pen? I've been thinking of the large ball tip. Or extra large. The biggest one. Optima's biggest one.
Gotcha. Just so you know, Reva is right under your wheels.
Okay.
So if you need to move, let me know so I can move her. So how do you know? Like, I feel like it's the same for most art. Like when I'm painting, I have a tendency to use different brushes for different things that I want to do. And but how do you decide which pen tip that you want to use?
First, I have an idea of what each pen does and how it looks. And that comes down to spending time with your pens. Sometimes I think one pen will work, and then it's just not giving me, or I'm dealing with the texture of the wood and the subject, and it's just not giving me what I want, so I'll switch pens.
I think a natural progression for like pen selection, it has to be the same as in other mediums. Like, I think that one of the most interesting pieces of advice I got from a teacher was to choose a paintbrush and try and do the entire composition with that paintbrush. Not just so that you learn the brush, but you'll get to points when you will think specifically like, hey, I wish my brush was more shaped like this, or it was smaller, or larger, or softer. And that will intuitively lead you towards specific other kinds of brushes. And I feel like for pyrography, that might also be a good piece of advice, is that you have a general pen tip that you use for utility, and you try and do the best that you can with that. And when it comes to it and you realize like, hey, I really wish that my pen tip was shaped like this or smaller, that will help you choose specific pen tips for specific things that you need to do. But I feel like it also comes down to what you said, spending time with your tools. And if you don't do that, I don't think that that's a battle that you can win. I think you have to have the experience with your tools. And the more that you have, the better decisions that you'll make.
Sometimes I just guess. Honestly, sometimes I just guess.
Well, that's anticlimactic, don't you think?
Well, it's the truth. I mean, I know my tips, but sometimes I guess.
That's not a very Mr. Miyagi answer, or is it?
So it is. Sometimes you just gotta test it out. All right, I'm gonna turn this off. Put it away. Flip. And see, because you saw it darker when it was down, and that's because now the light is hitting it more. But you'll also see all the splotches, which I'm not worried about. I actually had my 18M out yesterday, too. I think for today, I want, which you could also use the smallest Optima spoon if you don't have this ball tip. Let's see here.
So, why are you deciding on the ball?
Because I can get an interesting texture and a smoother oval connection between the different splotches.
Okay. So again, this comes down to your experience and knowing what that pen will do.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to flip this actually so it's easier for me to reach.
Seems like a theme.
Seems like a theme. See, it looks so much darker and more realistic to what it's actually going on. I'm at 4.5. Let's see. This tip does take, I'm going to bump it to 5 actually. This tip does take a little longer to heat up, plus I got the fan. I have to take that into account. Because there's so much metal on the end. So this one just naturally takes longer. If you want it to go faster, the small spoon shader will also make sure I don't have any heat. I'm going to touch down over here. And what I'm trying to show you is just because this is a different color, it's not going to stay that color. The gray to the brown. I'm doing fast ovals, trying to go with the grain, just because hopefully it'll make life easier. If you want, I can pull out the small spoon shader so we can see the difference.
Pearl says she uses 18L.
I do too, but I think for this particular...
Oh, she also uses 3B or her large spoon. She says her ball tips are her least used tips.
I actually really like this large ball tip. I found that I've gotten a pretty smooth burn with it.
When you were trying to teach me, I was thinking that the ball tips were like a good universal pen. Like I felt like I should be able to do anything with them. But I came to realize that you really do need, like especially when you're doing like fine hair or lines,
Yep.
that the ball tip it's not for that. Plus, and I'm regurgitating your information. One thing that you have to worry about with ball tips is that they conduct heat differently because there's more metal there.
Yep, so they run hotter.
Yeah.
Alright, so we got that one. Let's get down here.
Come down to knowing your tools.
Yep, I'm actually going to switch over. Let's turn that off, and I'm going to go with... So you can see how close in size. This is the spoon, and this is the extra large ball. Pretty much the same size. So I'm actually going to go up to medium.
Do the ball tips, do they hold heat? Do they hold heat better?
They hold it well because they are bigger. They do hold heat well.
So there's more mass there to retain the heat.
Yes.
Whereas the thinner blade type tips will dissipate heat quicker because they're thinner.
Yep.
Transfer the heat off.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Science.
So I'm going to go with the medium. I'm actually going to bump down to 4 because this is less metal. See,
Burl,
it's pretty darn thin.
Burl says that's why she likes her 3D. It keeps the heat once heated.
For some reason, that one, I mean, it has its place for me, but I don't use it very often.
Comes down to preference, right?
It comes down to preference. All right. Overlap so that you can smooth out. No, I didn't even test the pin to see if it was hot. That's because I already knew it was hot. There we go. This one does give us a little more, or different areas we can work with, whereas a ball tip, it doesn't matter what side you're on, it's all going to burn the same. Whereas the spoons are different. We got different edges to work with. I'm using this hand, hopefully my thumb's not in the way, to ensure that my fan is blocked.
Burl uses her ball tips for stippling.
Oh yes, very good for stippling.
Which makes sense, because then you're getting, the nice thing about a ball tip is that it's less dependent on the angle because it's a ball. So wherever you set down, it's probably going to burn the same imprint. It's going to make the same mark, I think.
Yeah, I had thought about doing a dark stipple on the background. I may still do that because this is not the full darkness I'm going to do. I think I am going to go a little darker, but here, right here, we've got a dark splotch. So let's see how much we can hide it.
I have to take my husky out.
Okay.
Because she's standing on me. She's telling me something. I don't know what it is.
You may need to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to start where I've got this dark splotch. I'm going to start around it and then go over it. And the reason I'm going to do that is so I can bring the tonal value around it closer. Then I'm going to go over it to blend and make sure I have the same texture as what I got around. Rex, are you staying in here? Dad'll be back. So this is the best way to hide if you do have splotches, which when you're using a torch, you're going to have splotches. So start around the splotch. And then start working it in. And it will even out. Which is the same way I do it with any pen that I'm using. The ball tip definitely holds the heat better. Slow down. I'm trying to angle it so I'm hitting more of the ball. And I tend to go in big circles and then slow it down and tighten it up when I'm blending. See, I've got a darker area right there. So I'm going to go around it to bring the area around it darker. And this grain is all over the place in width, which is normal for wood. All right, I'm going to lower my seat just so I can reach these areas better. But if you've got an area that's darker than the rest of the area, you're trying to balance it out and even it out, start around that darkness. So like right here, we got another splotch, pretty good splotch right there. So I'm going to touch down around it. Do oval strokes around. For me, the oval stroke is the easiest way to blend, which is why I use it so much. It's easier to control. You get a more even burn. You have to work it for a minute so that you don't have all the squigglies, but the more you work it and go over it back and forth, like I got a squiggly right there. The more I work it, the smoother it'll get. Now I can come back with any of the large spear shaders and also even out an area if I need to. Let's darken this. But see how the gray has turned to the brown? And that's just how the different heats interact with the wood grain. Slow down. I'm trying to hit in between the grain because this is basswood. It's easier to do than, say, pine. Pine is a nightmare. If you've been burning for a little while and you become really frustrated with pine, even if you're brand new and you're frustrated with pine, pine is actually one of the most frustrating woods to burn. In that case, it may not be you or your burner. It's just the wood. So I'm going up and down with the grain, but I'm still doing my ovals. I'm filling in. Think about when you were a kid and you had to do a drawing with colored pencils for whatever the assignment was. You had to keep going back over and over and over to get the smoothest and the tonal value of that color you wanted. Same way. Same thing. I mean, granted, that's also what can put me to sleep, is doing this over and over and over again. See, we got a little circle. That's in the grain, that lighter burn. That's the grain. So I'm going to keep trying to go over it. And sometimes parts of the grain will not darken as much as you want. Now, could I up my heat and just, go at it? Absolutely. But then I'll get a charcoal mark where I do not want one.
Wanda wants to know if you've ever burned bamboo.
I have not.
It seems like it would be very difficult.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I think
very,
burl has.
It's a very hard wood, isn't it?
It's a grass.
Oh.
Bamboo is a grass.
I did not know that.
It's also I believe it's glued together. And I try to stay away from any material that is glued together, that uses glue.
Makes sense to me.
I know other people do, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that loves it. And if they do, have fun. Go for it. I just have not done it, and I've looked into it. I know there's people burning on cork as well, and I think I have some cork paper, but the reason I have not used it is, again, it's glued together. And I just don't burn. That's why when, like at the craft stores, they have basswood planks that are larger than an average piece of basswood. If you look closely, they are glued together planks. And I don't use those because, one, the glue, but two, they don't burn evenly. You might get a dark area here, but then a light area over here, even though you were working the same temperature. Almost similar to pine. That's what I would probably say. Bamboo might be similar to, burning wise. I'm just trying to show that I got rid of. And even now, it's still not as dark as I want. And I could go back over this with the torch to go darker. But I've definitely evened it out. We'll come up here real quick and we'll do that dark one. I have noticed that this was lighter. Let me see. I lifted my pen, which means it completely recovered its heat. Remember, your wood or your material you're burning on acts as a heat sink, and it pulls heat from your tip. And when you lift it, depending on the burner type, it will recover its heat to the setting you have it at rather quickly, burning darker, so be careful when you touch back down.
Pearl says she uses... Wanda was saying she's wondering about the... Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, Burl agrees with you about the bamboo being glued, so that's toxic. She hates it. She doesn't like cork either. And then Wanda was wondering about that because she was asked to burn a cutting board of bamboo. And Burl says she gets maple for cutting board.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but...
You talking about the bamboo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think you would get frustrated easily because it's not going to have the same results.
Yeah.
And remember, if at all possible, you should have a test strip of the material you're burning on so that you can test your heat before you touch down.
Can I just say...
Just real quick, I'm trying to blend this one in, so that's what I'm doing. Go for it.
What you burn on is just as important
Yes.
as the pens that you use and how you use them.
That's what we were talking about while you were out.
Okay.
But by all means, keep going.
I was reminded of this recently because I paint. I don't burn.
Unless he's humoring me.
Listen.
Oh,
Say humoring. I almost walked into that.
You
one.
almost walked into
Why
that.
did you put mines down? That was wrong.
Sorry. Go for it.
Except when I'm engaging with my beautiful and talented wife in the art of wood burning, pyrography, one would say, which I don't rarely do. I really rarely do that because it's just not my thing. But, anyway, getting off topic here. Anyhow, in painting, like, there's ideal canvases that you can use.
Better weaves.
Tighter weaves.
Cotton, linen, silk.
Linens are better, and silks are better, yes. How tightly that they're stretched and so on and so forth. All that makes a difference. Like I did a sketch, and then I turned that sketch into a painting, and it was on like some really cheap sketching paper from a sketching tablet. Like not even like quality stuff, just like,
Oh, it wasn't the canvas tablet I got you?
oh no, that's really good.
Oh.
No, this is just like it was a hot press sketch pad that had like a coarse grain to it, and it and I was reminded like that the paint doesn't interact as well. Like you can't get as tight as details, and the paint soaks into it because it's a very porous surface, and that affected my ability to to complete that work the way that I wanted to. But it is the same for pyrography. If you choose a substrate to work on that is not ideal, then it's going to be much harder to do what you want to do. You may not be able to do the things that you want to do because of that.
All right, so I just wanted to show you that splotch is now completely hidden. And I was just linking the two darks. Again, I'm still going to go darker, I think, than what you see right here on the camera. And when I upright the photo, you're going to see this is not as dark as it looks right now, the photo. The wood, it's not as dark as you think. Now, Burl mentioned the large spoon shader. I actually do tend to start with the large and then work my way down, but we can grab that real quick. This is the large. Make sure your tips are clean. They will always burn better at a lower heat when your tips are clean. I'm going to stick to 4. This is a thinner pen than what we were just using. There we go. I'm going to check on the heat on this one. I'm trying to make sure I have the fan block because that will mess with my heat setting. This does allow us to do a bigger area. And I'm more flat as I'm doing this. But if you notice, I'm also not getting into the grain like I was. So that also plays a part in which pen to grab. I'll end up probably with a more textured area, and we'll look at it and then I'll switch out so I can fill it in. But I'm still at 4. I tend to like turn my tip a little to the right and up in the corner and trying to get into the grain. I also, well, it depends. It really does. Because a lot of times I'll start with this pen and then work down to the smaller ones at an actual lower setting with the smaller ones. And the lower setting actually tends to smooth out the burn. So you get more texture. And where the grain is smaller, I gotta be careful touching because it's hot. You'll have a harder time getting in between the grain because it's a larger pen. You'll get in there. It just won't burn as smooth because the harder pieces of grain will burn darker. Trying to blend. Sometimes I have found that I put a little more pressure. I'm trying to get in between the grain. which actually will hurt my finger or my nail because of how I hold my pen. My nail bed ends up getting bruised because I'm gripping hard and then I'm putting pressure. So if you're hurting after burning, you might not be using the right pen for that moment. And learn to adjust and do micro adjustments, kind of like if you're writing with a pencil. You know how you get your hand tired?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do those micro adjustments. Same exact thing. Yeah, I'm not liking this one. So this is how I know that is not the pen for the job in the moment. Let's see. Let's see. This is a hot pen. I'm trying to find a place to put it down. So Burl said she likes the 3B. That would be this pen. It has a more harsh angle. Not harsh. Harsh is the wrong word. A more straight angle. Whereas the spoon shaders are curved, this is more flat. I'm going to keep it at 4. You may have to increase the heat. But see, when dealing with the ugly stage, I can do this. I can take the time, find which pen I like the best, and then use that. Each burn is different. Each piece of wood's different. Each area on the same piece of wood can be different. So for how the strokes I'm doing for this pen, I prefer a drag at an angle, side angle, so I get more area. This also changes the texture. And it might be for how I've already been burning. It might be a better choice. Once I have all this laid down and I'm going to darken it, because I can feel it grab the grain. I have to do smaller strokes. But because we're in the ugly stage, let's try this. I'm up on the tip trying to get in between. Yeah, I'm not liking this one for what I'm doing in the moment. So I'm actually going to put that one back. I just wanted to pull it out because Burl mentioned it.
Okay.
Now, for a long time, I was using the 18M, the medium spear shader. I'm going to keep it at 4, but we're probably going to see maybe a slight difference in the burn. It burned a little darker, maybe. We'll see. So now I have to blend those in. So I will do the oval stroke because I'm trying to get around the grain. And because I'm up on the tip, I'm actually getting more heat. If I go flat, so now I've got quite the ugly spot that I'm not happy with. And sometimes this happens where I'm going back and forth trying to find the pen for the moment. And then I end up, let's see here, this one is the medium. Back to, a lot of times, the pen I started with. So it depends on what pen is most comfortable in your hand and how it's burning how it's working with the wood that you're burning. There we go. So now I'm going to try to hide those, because when I go to darken, they'll stand out more if I don't even out the area. And I can see now I've gone through several pens. I'm still getting those streaks, so that tells me the grain is having some fun. Whew, it is hot in here. I'm sweating.
How long are you going today?
Normal time.
Because you're about 3 minutes till noon.
Oh. Well, then we need to see if we got any questions. If you're feeling overwhelmed with the ugly stage, take into consideration that the ugly stage can be your friend. It can be your best learning tool if you stick to the piece. I know that's hard. It's hard for me. 20 years later, still hard for me. Because I get something stuck in my head the way I want it. And then I'm sitting in this ugly stage for what seems like forever. But in the process of doing this over the 20 years, if I take the time to think about it, the ugly stage is where I've gotten so frustrated to the point that I say, F it, I'm going to try this. And then I find out I actually like that. Or I found a new tool. I've figured out how to use my tools maybe slightly different than before. Yeah, I can see there's a line where this grain kind of messes with me. Totally normal. That's part of working with the wood. But I will keep going back over this, and it will work itself out. But what we can see is it's no longer gray. Our burning has gotten back to the browns.
Yes.
And again, this is not as dark as it's going to go. It is going to go darker.
Yeah, and here's another thought. I think in order for the art to be completed, you kind of have to go through another ugly stage.
Mhm.
It is part of the process.
It
So
really
it's not
is.
like you can avoid it. So,
But what I do see is people kind of stop
yeah.
because they're overwhelmed, or they think that's where, I mean, if that's a choice, like a true choice, then so be it. Nothing wrong with that. You've made an artistic choice.
Don't ever underestimate the power of just looking at your art and seeing what you think you need to do next. Because working on a piece of art doesn't mean just tools to, what you're working on. So it doesn't mean that you have to be actively engaged in, using your pens for pyrography. Part of that process is often regarding your work, like staring at it and seeing it from different angles and trying to figure out what happens next. And sometimes that process can be lengthy, but that's also part of it.
Yeah, I see this line right here. That's part of the grain, burning different. So I'm going to burn up to that line.
We're at now.
Okay. And start working it out. So let's flip the board, see what it looks like at this point, since we've been at this angle the whole time. Oh, most of the time. What pen is that? Put that in my holder. There we go. Whew. It was 91 here yesterday, and we don't have air conditioning.
No.
Whew.
I think it was easier yesterday than it was the day before, though. I don't know why.
I don't either.
It felt cooler last night.
All right. Now see how that changed? Right now it looks more gray where we've been working. And that's just from the camera angle and how the light's hitting. Let me see if I can get to. So when I took that picture, I was standing off to my right in my camera angle. There we go. But I need to adjust my brightness a little bit. But you see how the light, we don't have the glare anymore. It's the same thing I discussed when we were varnishing and why I use the glossy. But we can see the difference. I bet you if I wiped it, I'd also get some carbon off of there. From there. But looking at it, the large ball tip did the darkest 5 setting. I can see the splotch a little bit more from this angle. It just means I need to keep building up around it. We can also see how much this lightens up. And how much burning that doesn't look as dark. That's why. Alrighty. So, I asked the universe what card we needed to see this week. What we needed to know to be successful in our burning this week. And I got exposed. And I was like, this actually goes back to what we were discussing 2 weeks ago. It says, I lean into vulnerability. Make sure I'm on camera. There we go. I embrace vulnerability as a strength, allowing myself to authentically connect with others. The same with our art. It's the same thing, like we were discussing before. I expose myself when something is off so that you guys can learn, which makes me feel very vulnerable because who doesn't want everybody to think you're perfect at what you do? I'm not perfect. I am far from it. And that feels very vulnerable. But in doing that, it does allow me to be stronger in myself, in my confidence, and what have you. So maybe somebody needed to hear that in this moment, which is why we got that card. It's a good reminder for all of us, and but just in case you needed to hear it, I embrace vulnerability as a strength, allowing myself to authentically connect with others. No masks. This is who we are, and that's how our art is. If we aren't authentic with ourselves, we can't be authentic with our art. And who views our art will pick up that authenticity. And sometimes the art just isn't perfect, and that's what makes it more authentic. So, be vulnerable in your art. You will grow. Which actually, if you think about it, goes along with the ugly stage. Could I hide the ugly stage from everybody and just show you a piece of art finished? Or at least more detailed than it was before? Let me cut that brightness down. Absolutely. Which would make you feel bad because then you'd be wondering why my art doesn't look like that piece of art. And that's because I'm cutting out all the areas where I didn't show the process. All right. Hopefully I'll be able to keep burning and not get so damn hot that I can just put my piece of wood outside and it'll burn. That's how hot it is. Our rain's supposed to be coming back, so I'm excited about that. All right, kiddos. Let me get back to what I was trying to do. There we are. Say it with me. You're awesome. You can do this. Why? Because you're a pyro artist. Happy burning, guys. Bye. I gotta find a song.